Imagine waking up on a luxury cruise ship, surrounded by 3,000 people, only to discover that someone you love has vanished without a trace. No alarm, no struggle, no goodbye, just an empty balcony, a pair of sandals left behind, and a question that has haunted a family for almost 30 years. Her name was Amy Bradley. She was 23 years old, and in the early morning hours of March 24, 1998, somewhere between the islands of Aruba and Curacao, she disappeared from a ship carrying thousands of passengers, and no one can say for certain what happened to her. Before we go further, if stories like this matter to you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications now, because we're about to walk through one of the most baffling missing persons cases in modern cruise history. This is the story of Amy Bradley. Amy Lynn Bradley was born on May 12, 1974, and raised in Petersburg, Virginia. Those who knew her describe a young woman who was athletic, independent, and full of momentum. She graduated from Longwood University with a degree in health and physical education, and by her early 20s, she had already built a life around movement and sport, working as a lifeguard, a swim coach, and a waitress, while she figured out her next step. Friends and family have described Amy as outgoing and adventurous, the kind of person who filled a room. She had short brown hair that she sometimes dyed blonde, green eyes, and several tattoos that would later become one of the most talked about identifying details in the entire case. A Tasmanian devil on her shoulder, a sun on her lower back, a small Chinese character near her ankle, and a gecko near her navel. In March of 1998, Amy was at something of a crossroads. According to accounts from her family, she had lined up a new job, was looking at apartments, and had even arranged to take in a dog named Daisy once she returned home. She was, by every account, looking forward to what came next. That same month, the Bradley family, Amy, her parents Ron and Iva, and her younger brother Brad, boarded the Royal Caribbean cruise ship Rhapsody of the Seas for a 7-day trip through the Caribbean. It wasn't just a vacation. It was meant to be a celebration, a chance for the family to be together before Amy started the next chapter of her life. She reportedly brought along more than a dozen rolls of film, intending to make a photo collage of the trip, and mailed postcards to friends along the way. No one on that ship could have imagined that within days, Amy would vanish, and that the family trip meant to mark a beginning would instead mark the start of a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. The Rhapsody of the Seas departed San Juan, Puerto Rico, on Saturday, March 21, 1998, bound first for Aruba. By Monday, March 23rd, the ship had left Aruba and was sailing through international waters toward its next port of call, Curacao, in the Netherlands Antilles. That night, according to accounts given by her family, Amy went out with her younger brother Brad to the ship's onboard nightclub. The two spent hours socializing, dancing, and enjoying the ship's nightlife alongside other passengers and members of the ship's band. It was, by all descriptions, an ordinary night of vacation fun, nothing that stood out as unusual or alarming at the time. At some point in the early morning hours, Amy and Brad returned to the cabin the family shared. Their father, Ron Bradley, has said that he woke around 5:30 a.m. and saw Amy on the cabin's balcony, her legs visible on a chair, apparently resting or asleep. It is important to underline this. That glimpse of her legs on the balcony is the last confirmed sighting of Amy Bradley by her family. He then went back to sleep. When he woke again a short time later, by most accounts roughly half an hour, Amy was gone. What followed was a scramble that any parent can imagine, but few could ever be prepared for. Ron and Iva Bradley searched the cabin. They searched the balcony. Amy's sandals were reportedly still there, but she was not. The family began searching the immediate area of the ship on their own before alerting crew members. Royal Caribbean staff were brought in, and eventually a search of the massive vessel was launched, a ship with 10 decks and roughly 1,000 feet of length, carrying thousands of passengers and crew. Searching a floating city for one missing person, while that city continues moving through international waters, is an enormous logistical challenge, and every hour that passed made the search more difficult. The ship continued its scheduled route, docking at Curacao, then St. Martin, then St. Thomas, before returning to San Juan on March 28th. Whether this delay affected the investigation has been debated for years, but what's confirmed is this: there was no announcement over the ship's PA system, no lockdown, no coordinated law enforcement response in those first critical hours the way there might be for a disappearance on land. By the time the ship returned to port and law enforcement became fully involved, days had already passed. That gap, the hours and days before a formal land-based investigation could even begin, is one of the central frustrations that has shaped this case for almost 3 decades. In the days that followed, authorities from multiple jurisdictions became involved, including local police in the Caribbean nations the ship had passed through, the FBI, and Royal Caribbean's own internal security. Coast Guard vessels from the Netherlands Antilles conducted searches of the surrounding waters, looking for any sign that Amy may have gone overboard. No body was ever recovered, no physical evidence of a fall, no signs of a struggle, no blood, nothing conclusive was found on the balcony or elsewhere on the ship, according to reporting on the case. This absence of physical evidence is part of what has kept the case so contested for so long. There has never been a single piece of evidence solid enough to close the book on any one theory. The Bradley family, for their part, refused to accept early assumptions that Amy had simply fallen or jumped from the balcony. They pushed for a wider investigation, hired private investigators, and began building relationships with journalists and eventually documentary filmmakers to keep Amy's case in the public eye, a fight that, remarkably, continues to this day, more than a quarter-century later. If a case like this deserves more attention, drop a comment below and share this video. It genuinely helps get these stories in front of more people who might know something. The theories over the years, investigators, journalists, and the family have circled around several central theories. None of them has ever been proven. Let's walk through each one honestly. Theory 1. An accidental fall overboard. This was the earliest working theory, based partly on the fact that Amy had been up late, had been drinking, and was last seen resting on a balcony above open water. Some reporting has noted that a table on the balcony appeared to have been pushed toward the railing, which some interpreted as a sign she may have climbed up and lost her balance. But this theory has never been confirmed, and the family has long expressed skepticism of it, pointing to what came next, a string of reported sightings that suggested to them that Amy may not have gone into the water at all. Theory 2. Amy left the ship voluntarily. Some who have examined the case, including participants in the 2025 Netflix documentary Amy Bradley is Missing, have floated the idea that Amy may have left the ship on her own, possibly in the company of a member of the ship's band, to continue partying on shore, and that something happened to her afterward that prevented her from returning. This theory is tied closely to alleged sightings, which we'll get into shortly. It remains unconfirmed and speculative. Theory 3. Abduction. Because there is no confirmed proof Amy went overboard, some investigators have not ruled out that she was taken from the ship against her will, either by someone she'd interacted with that night or by a stranger. If true, this would mean Amy was abducted from a moving vessel in international waters, a scenario that presents enormous jurisdictional and investigative challenges, which may partly explain why the case has never been solved. Theory 4. Human trafficking. This is perhaps the theory that has drawn the most renewed attention in recent years. Investigators and the family's private investigators have pursued leads suggesting Amy may have been trafficked after leaving, or being taken from, the ship, with alleged sightings placing her in specific locations in the years that followed. As of the most recent reporting, the FBI has reportedly interviewed individuals connected to trafficking operations in the region as part of this renewed effort. It's important to state clearly, this remains an active line of inquiry, not a confirmed conclusion. Each of these theories has passionate defenders and passionate skeptics. None of them has been proven, and that, more than anything else, is why this case remains open. The sightings and the clues. In the years following Amy's disappearance, a series of alleged sightings emerged, mostly centered on Curaçao and Barbados, but also touching Aruba. None of these sightings has ever been officially confirmed by law enforcement, but each one has kept hope alive for the Bradley family, and each one has added a new layer to the mystery. One of the earliest reported sightings came from a fellow passenger on the very morning Amy vanished, who claimed to have seen a woman matching Amy's description getting into an elevator alongside a member of the ship's band. This account has never been verified, and it should be treated as an allegation, not a fact. But it became one of the threads investigators and documentarians would pull on for years afterward. Other reported sightings over the following years placed a woman resembling Amy in bars and clubs on shore, sometimes described as looking frightened, sometimes described as flanked by other people who appeared to be controlling her movements or preventing her from speaking freely. In some of these accounts, witnesses pointed to a tattoo they said matched one of Amy's, most often the Tasmanian devil design. None of these sightings led to a confirmed identification. None resulted in Amy being found. But collectively, they are the reason so many people, including her own family, have never accepted that Amy simply fell into the sea that night. The Bradley family's fight. What makes this case different from so many others is the sheer, unrelenting persistence of Amy's family. For nearly 30 years, Ron and Iva Bradley, along with Amy's brother Brad, have refused to let the case go cold in the public's mind. They've given interviews. They've worked with private investigators. They've maintained a website and message boards where tips could be submitted. They pushed for and supported a 2025 Netflix docuseries, Amy Bradley is Missing, specifically to generate new leads. And by their own account, that documentary worked, generating tips that have reportedly reopened active threads in the investigation, including one unconfirmed claim, reported in late 2025, that Amy may have had a child after her disappearance. Her brother Brad has publicly stated the family has no confirmed evidence of this, while acknowledging it's a possibility they can't rule out. Living with an unresolved disappearance for this long takes a toll that's almost impossible to describe. There's no funeral, no closure, no finality, only the endless possibility that somewhere, Amy might still be out there. That uncertainty is its own kind of grief, one that resets every time a new lead comes in and doesn't pan out, and reignites every time a new one appears. The case today. As of the most recent developments, the FBI has renewed its public appeal for information, releasing updated missing persons materials and offering a reward, reported at $25,000 in some accounts and up to $100,000 in others, for information leading to Amy's recovery or to the identification and arrest of anyone responsible for her disappearance. Following the release of the Netflix documentary, filmmakers and the family's private investigators have said the FBI has interviewed individuals connected to potential trafficking operations in the region, examining whether those threads connect to Amy's case. As of now, no arrests have been made, and no definitive resolution has been reached. Amy Lynn Bradley would be in her early 50s today. Her case remains open with the FBI, and remains, by any measure, one of the most enduring unsolved disappearances connected to the cruise industry. What really happened? So we return to the question that has driven this entire investigation for almost 3 decades. What really happened to Amy Bradley? Here is what we know for certain. Amy was last confirmed seen by her father, resting on the balcony of her family's cabin at approximately 5:30 in the morning on March 24, 1998. Roughly 30 minutes later, she was gone. No confirmed physical evidence has ever placed her in the water. No confirmed sighting has ever placed her safely on land. And in the years since, an entire ecosystem of alleged sightings, theories, and half-confirmed leads has grown around a case that, at its core, still has no definitive answer. Did Amy fall from that balcony into the Caribbean Sea in the last moments of a night out with her brother? Did she leave the ship of her own accord, only to fall into circumstances beyond her control? Was she taken by someone she knew, or by a stranger? And does that trail lead, as recent investigators suspect, toward human trafficking networks operating in the region at the time? No one can say for certain, and that's precisely why this case continues to draw new attention, new investigators, and new hope, nearly 30 years later. Behind every theory, Every alleged sighting and every headline, there is a real person. Amy Bradley was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a young woman with a dog waiting for her back home, and a future she had already started planning. For almost 30 years, her family has refused to stop looking for her, not for a story, not for closure in the abstract, but because somewhere, they believe, there might still be an answer. After all these years, what really happened to Amy Bradley? Did she disappear beneath the waves in the final moments of a family vacation? Did someone take her from that ship in the dark? And if she survived, if she is out there somewhere, as her family still hopes, could the answers still be waiting to be found? If you believe Amy's story should never be forgotten, leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories about unsolved disappearances and mysterious true crime cases, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.